trying to explain this as concisely quickly as I can, but there's so many different elements. It's become very complicated, and it should not have gone this far. So the issue is the bunnies, and it is still urgent because I am needing to make sure that I have verification that they're okay, that they're being ethically treated, that they have been for the past 33 days, aka 6 weeks and 3 days, 6 weeks and 3 days, 33 days total, that they have been out of my care, taken away from me, and I have been denied to have any contact with them at all. To make matters worse, we have a pressing court case. I was thrown in prison, so I'm just going to go through this basically, so hopefully it makes sense. And, trying to reassure my family and friends that I'm not trying to get them in trouble with any of this, and it has not been my fault about the way things were mishandled, so please don't blame me. I have been victimized in ways that you may not understand. I'm trying to communicate that. So they were dropped off. First of all, this was all under the table. None of this, all this agreement was made with Fairytale Farm between Kimberly, the owner, and my mother, who has currently been my legal guardian, and I needed to restore my competency earlier, which has become posed as a huge issue. So this was all done without my permission, without my consent, and without my awareness, first and foremost. I was made aware after the fact that they paid, that Betsy Schabacker, my legal guardian, paid $300, which was my disability check for the month. So that needed to have, I need to have my permission to do that, and I was not notified until after the fact. And then also, so just Spartan, I was trying to sleep. I was trying to make up a lack of sleep. And forced me to get the two bunnies. We dropped them off. Yin and Yang, Treble and Bass, they were dropped off October 17th in the afternoon. Then we had a second drop off for the other two, Pearly and Lily, Boo Boo and Moptail. We dropped them off on October 19th in the afternoon. And after that, I had requested, and I had the text message thread that I expressly I was not threatening in any way, and I had to reiterate that many times, that it was absolutely vital and essential that I have open communication connection with my babies. They are my fur babies. They are my therapy bunnies, my emotional support animals. It was wrong on their part to not only be denying access, but they said they had no other point of contacts. The volunteers that they had stated were there twice a day. We had no contact with them. We were not informed of their first names. There was no likeness of them. There's no proof. There's no authentication, certification. And once again, the agreement was, or it was an oral agreement. It was not put into writing. There was no documentation of anything, the terms of agreement. And also, there was no invoice or receipt that was issued in return for the payment of $300. I was just told after the fact that transaction was made, and I was exempt from having that money for the whole month. So anyway, to make matters worse and more complicated, and not only am I going through emotional toil, as the mother here, I am the mother, I am the owner, and that is my money that has been dispensed without my permission. So on all those fronts, that's wrong. Now, Gabriel and I had tried to be able to go over there with Nick Taverner, with Richard Phillips, with Betsy Schabacker. Those were the ones in the support who knew how much they mean to me, and were denying being able to go over to visit. They continued to block me, and I only had one number in which I was not able to even have a connection. Okay? And I'm trying to communicate how wrong that is. Not just from a business standpoint, but also ethics. And so Gabriel Marcus, one of my close friends, has been very loyal, was the only one who offered to be able to help me get over there. I have the text message and proof in the text thread to Kimberly saying, Fairytale Farm, saying, okay, we're going to stop by today. Just want to let you know, this is what time we'll think we'll be there. I'll make sure to let you know when we're on the way. What am I supposed to do? We can't wait around and for no response. It's already what, 2 weeks into this? And they're refusing to do anything. She said she would do a video chat once a week. Well, at the 2 week mark, they were only able to do a one video chat after I had expressly said you violated the terms of your agreement, which you only said that you could do one video chat a week. Well, it's been 2 weeks. And so Gabriel and I said, we're going to be on the way here. Sorry we're late. We're going over there after dinner. We're on the way. We've arrived. Oh, they were informed of this. They said this was the only number where they have contact. So I'm sure that they got the message, and if they did not, they need to communicate that. So we got over there, and I didn't know what to think, so I assumed that, since they left the door open, which is another point of something that they need to be, aware of was wrong. But I assumed that they left the door open for us because they knew we were coming. So I said, well, we're going to go in now. I wrote that in the text to them. And I also was very responsible, made sure that everything was okay. I'm not going in there to steal things. They have surveillance up. They will know that. Not only was I taking responsibility for that, I also shared a video. I went in there to make sure my babies are okay, and the other bunnies too that are up for adoption. Okay, so we went in there and got the video. Gabriel took the video. We spent probably under 5 minutes. Not even 5 minutes. They have the proof. I sent that immediately. I locked up. I shut the lights off exactly the way that it was. I was very responsible. And then I let them know, you know what? You need to lock your door. I assume you left it open so we could get in to visit. But that's not responsible either, is to leave them unattended. I don't know if there's someone to go in at night, they volunteer. But my babies are not used to being left alone at night in the first place. They are not used to not having their mother to hold them, to comfort them. I needed that same comfort. They're my therapy bunnies. This does not only have an effect on my mental health, but my physical health as well. And if those in authority can't respect and appreciate and be able to advocate for that, then they are abusing their authority. That is wrong on their part as well to condone that and say that, blame the victim here and make me into the criminal and a victim. So, and then I was not notified again till after the fact that the police were called. Apparently, my mom was the only one who told me that they had called, the police had been called. That's all I was told. And then, and then 1 week later, they said, well, you can't visit yet. We're trying to clear the criminal charges. They said that you were accused of breaking and entering, trespassing on the property. But all of that was communicated in the only line of communications they said that they had. And they left their door open. So I called the police department. I did not have the number. I didn't know who it was who made the charges. So I left a message with the, I think, Curtisville Police Department, Colfax, because that's what it is in Sherfield Road, Colfax. I left them a voicemail trying to clear that. I did not have an advocate. And my friend Gabriel, who went over there with me, refused to advocate. He does not want to be involved with any of this. Neither do I. But it was wrong on his part not to be willing to advocate. So I'm trying to communicate to him, to you, Gabriel, as well, how important it is for you to be able to stand up to defend yourself as well. Because if you're innocent, I'm innocent, we need to be able to advocate for each other. And so called them, and then then more time passed, okay? And I'm not sure what to do. I tried to clear the charge. I don't know what's going on. They never informed me. I heard this through my mother. And then I had picked up some evidence that I found. I'm trying to take social responsibility. This is not my department. I do not even want to have to deal with other people's crimes. but I had found some evidence, a blade holder or something, that I picked up. I've been trying to get it over to the police department. I've been trying to report things that are wrong, unethical, which just delivery apartments and the court's real estate should appreciate and acknowledge. Instead, the neighbors are blaming me. So that's wrong. But anyway, the police department here, Forsyth County, they have heard many times I filed many different reports. I was trying to do the right thing to turn in this evidence. I said I want to make sure also there shouldn't be any charges. They are based on false allegations. This is not anything that we've done wrong. I have the evidence as well. Please make sure these charges are clear. The police officer, was it Dust? I'll find the name. He looked up in the record. He said, well, the Guilford County Police Department has issued a warrant for your arrest. The charges are still active, and I'm going to need to arrest you. So he came into my apartment and handcuffed me in front of Mr. Ginger. And I said, you can't do this. I was not even notified of these charges. They are false. He said, well, we have to go along with their warrant for the arrest. So they took me down to the jail on Church Street, and I talked with the magistrate, swore on the Bible that. Meanwhile, I'm handcuffed, can barely move. I had not had any food for hours and hours and hours. I was trying to feed my baby. I could not even reassure him that it'd be okay, that I'd come back. I didn't know if I would. I wouldn't have, if Omar had not ended up bailing me out. What? Over money? So we went over there, and I was, being interrogated, and all of this had to take this whole ordeal, the fingerprint, everything. And meanwhile, I am an emotional wreck, not wondering. Prison is not a kind place to be for anybody. So I ended up getting incarcerated and being and I said this was a discrepancy. I say I have not had lunch. Could I please have some food so I don't starve, so that I can be able to go back to my apartment? I have my therapy buddy there. I have every right to go back to my apartment so that I can make sure he's okay. And he's not gonna, he's gonna be okay. And they said, well, no, you have to stay here until the court order tomorrow, and there's gonna be another court date set. And then they said, well, yes, you can leave after lunch, but there's going to be another court date. So I was informed by the police officer that court date was set for December, and that I could have some food and go back. And then they incarcerated me. So he was misleading me. I ended up stuck in there. Went from prison cell to prison cell. I cannot even. That's just vomit worthy. I've had nightmares about it. Just even the sewage, but from a mental standpoint, to be traumatized like that and re-traumatized, here I'm just trying to recover. I never got to fully recover. I've been hospitalized for things that I shouldn't have gone through. And I'm put through all this. So to save a long story short, I'll go into more detail about the actual experience of it. But had I not been able to, apparently, I would have been stuck in there, probably died. This is true. If Omar, my friend Omar Corey, no, I'm not romantically involved with him, no, I'm not trying to get his money and did all this, so stop the false accusations. People make us jump to conclusions that are wrong. He heard through his bouncer at the wrong number bar of Wahoo, who have always tried to look out, for safety, which I appreciate. And he apparently had found on the police report, just happened to find that I had been arrested that morning. So, some of these things get transmitted through telepathy or through spiritual ways of communicating, just to get the intuition something might be wrong or someone might need help. So there's always those aspects. So anyway, but if he had not let him know how crucial it was for me to get out of there and pay the $250 bond or whatever it was to bail, they would have kept me in there, and I would have probably died not far after. And there were, the ladies in there, they're used to crimes, they're used to brawls, they're used to violence, they're used to abuse. And I would not have survived. They were, out, all out having cat bites, and those are not cats to mess with. And I was clinging on to, I was exhausted in every way, just lay there, hoping, praying to God that I would not die and have to stay there and all that. Just trying to maintain my sanity, integrity, because I was getting so to the point when I was just stuck in that cell, and they wouldn't even. I had to bang on the window, and then they threatened me. They would not listen. I said, I need to make a phone call. Here are my rights. I don't have an advocate. I have an attorney. I need to make a phone call. I need to make sure my baby's okay. I have not had food. That they gave me a white bread, bologna and processed cheese sandwich. At least I didn't starve, but it hurt my blood sugar more than that. That's the kind of food that these people are eating all the time. My God. Not only not hangry, not only are there, that triggers all kinds of things. So I was barely surviving that, and I'm grateful that I had help to get out of there. Had not, I would not have ended well. And now, still, we're forced to go to court over this. Pay money to them. This is just wrong. And then they're wanting more money for the bail to be able to pay for something that should have been communicated and handled. That would not be an issue. I would have not gone through that hell, and I did suffer. I did struggle. This just could have been avoided. And now, all these other people involved. If she didn't want to get the law involved, then why did they let this go through and not clear these charges earlier? This should have been cleared 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago when it happened, which was November. I'll have to find that date when Gabriel and I went by. But I do have the date. I do have the dates. October 17th dropped off. Okay. October 19th. October 3rd was the first video chat. November 3rd, first video chat. Second video chat, November 12th. Nothing other than that. But I'm not trying to overreact here, but my babies, they have never been without their mother holding them. They have slept in the same room. I live in a studio apartment. We have been in the same room comforting each other. They have not been used. They don't know who these strangers were until they've, they've been forced to. We don't have authentication. It's suspicious. Not to have first names, not to have pictures, only to be able to have a number where they don't respond, and have no other point of contact, and have no other means to coordinate a visit, and to have my friend Nick be the only one who's able to be in communication, to be an intermediary, and he's using the same exact number. That's wrong. There's something going on. So I contacted PETA, and I contacted the same foundation, and I contacted Oxbow, all of which, well, not PETA, Oxbow and the foundation are sponsors. They are supporting the Fairy Tale Farms. So I want to make sure I am not by any means trying to threaten them or take anything away. In fact, I would be more than happy to pay them, but I could not even afford to live this month. And this was not. She had offered to do this on a voluntary basis, to be able to be a rescue, to be able to help them recover, and by all means, I wanted to be able to be part of the process, the positivity, being able to go over and meet the animals and bond and be able to foster, be able to possibly adopt. If we had support, if we'd been able to communicate, if we not had criminal charges against us, if we not had you know, then we'd be none of this would have none of these problems would have come about. So I want to make sure that you understand there's issues also of not having support with advocacy, not being able to stand up and defend someone when they're innocent. Gabriel's innocent as well, and I want to believe that Kimberly and her employees and her volunteers, that they have good intentions, that they're ethical, but they were not able to communicate and they're not able to provide any sort of authentication. If they had made efforts to, then we have a peace of mind, some reassurance, which we should have had. So I am not trying to threaten them in any way, and I do not want to have to take anybody to court, but I want to make sure you understand the details of how wrongly this has been mishandled and how wrong it is to blame me as being a criminal and put me in a victim criminal role, and then not be able to communicate and prevent me from having any contact with my babies, my family, my therapy animals. We need each other. They've been my lifeline. You need to understand our special bond, mother and babies. And I want to have them to have a special bond. But to treat me like I'm a third party and exclude me from that is wrong. If she had said, well, here's another employee, why don't you get in touch with them, or let me share this with the team and let's make sure they're on the same page. I have important things to share about their recovery from trauma, from torture, which is not a hyped up claim. We have legitimately been through trauma and torture with death threats and all that, and sexual assault. So we are needing to make sure we're on the same page. And I, as a mother's right, as the owner's right, as the as the customer's right. Without my permission or consent, that's not right. So I'm needing to restore my competency with my own mother, legal guardian, which was needed 5 years ago, but has posed as a problem in a dictatorship the past couple years. So I hope you understand all these other things, so we are not dealing with any more complications. That's all for now. 22 seconds. 22 minutes in. So, that's all for now, and I feel a tremendous sense of release just being able to share this. I'm not wanting for anybody to be punished or for anybody to be threatened. That was never my intention. And I want you to understand a lot of this anger has been misdirected, but the anger has been built up over time and time again, feeling violated and abused and threatened and all these other things. So to not have people who purport to care, purport to be there, purport to be supportive, purport to be all these things that, that we need in our lives. To not have support either from PETA or Oxbow, and they're ignoring my request too. I have reached out numerous times. I don't want to take it personally, but we have not had support. My mother, this is several years later, has cleaned the cage twice. How many times have I cleaned the cage? I'm not complaining about it. I'm complaining about what's wrong is that we don't have support. There are volunteers in this community all over the world who spend hours a day helping animal shelters, homeless shelters. They give thousands of dollars to help support people and animals to recover, to rehabilitate. People get their dogs grooming appointments. They get the manicures. They dress them up. They put them in strollers. We've had none of that. I've always had a special bond with animals. These bunnies have saved the community and the country. And that is not a hyped up claim either. I hope you understand that's true and why that's important and why we're important and why we should not be treated as though we're the problem, because that's what some of these people are trying to make us into, as scapegoats and victimize us and make us into criminals. And I don't want the criminals to be treated that way either. But we are not. We are innocent, and we are not trying to punish the guilty. We are trying to regain our lives. We are trying to be able to have support with things, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, with the basic essential things that are conducive to just living, to just surviving. But it was this much of a struggle just to have to defend and reclaim everything that's been taken, to defend everything that's been violated without without an attorney at all, without an advocate who understands. I can't do any more than that. And I've needed to have support with a full recovery. I've not been able to even travel, go anywhere, and my close friends and family, they're always going other places. They know how much it's meant, and then they tell me when they get there. And it's more than inconsiderate, it's wrong. To have dinner with someone, and I appreciate them treating me to dinner or to a meal, helping me afford a meal, but it doesn't go that far. And when I've struggled to afford a meal, they have bragged about, being able to. And the people that get sponsorships and projects, I haven't been even able to be employed, gainfully employed, after being fired, unemployed for sharing too much on social media. And I don't want to have to keep saying these things over and over again. I'm trying to help people understand. And I am not trying to threaten or blame them either. But they've deleted articles that are very, very important. Mean so much to me on a heart level. They deleted articles about my family, about my being a humanitarian, about being a humanitarian songwriter. By the way, I'm having hacking issues with all of my devices. I'm needing a refund from Apple. I have not had access to my devices. People have been stealing my intellectual property. And as it stands, I have had all my cards other than my PayPal card, which I really don't have money in now anyway. I have had 2 state ID cards. All of the cards that I worked so hard to get. All of the accounts of my, that I worked so hard to have nothing in them anyway. My EBT card that people are trying to deny payment and steal. Somebody who was at the dwellings, the homeless are, where I wanted to help, but I kept getting infected and I kept getting death threats. Don't feel safe there either. And apparently they picked up my cards, and I went over there they said they returned them, and they stood me up, and I do not have any of my cards. I don't have the energy to replace everything. I do not even can do anything without a state ID card. I am denied the right to have a driver's license because of the seizure disorder. And I'm not able to even pay a replacement fee at this point. Go figure. And they were trying to deny. So another part I didn't understand, and then we'll come to closure for now. Can't add anything else to the list, right? Is that the housing, there was undue pressure from the government care team, and I don't want to have to go into all this. Like I said, I am not trying to punish people but they're not doing their job, then they do not need to be making a paycheck. They are not doing their job. They need to be warned that they need to improve that, or they need to provide equal services to their clientele when they are providing other services to other clients and excluding others. That's a form of discrimination. So, after not having a therapist for 7 months, where are we now? Okay. This is too much for one person to handle. Do you see what I mean? This is just part of the story. But did you experience this from an emotional standpoint, from a physical standpoint? Did this affect your sleep, your health, your longevity, your fertility, which you would have had? Your right to be a mother? 40 years old, your right to have a career? 40 years old. So anyway, back to that. Where were we? I have to backtrack here. I just wanted to share one. Okay, so the government support. Yes, I'm still on disability. No, I do not deserve to be persecuted. Yes, I have been threatened 24/7 about it. For dual diagnosis bipolar and schizoaffective, and also a psychogenic seizure disorder, which I thankfully don't have now. Um, so that part of the suffering is done. But TCLI is the program where they assist with partial rent for the housing. They were threatening to drop that for no legitimate reasons. They had reasoning that was completely debased and illegitimate. They said, "Oh, you need to," it was because the bunnies are messy. The neighbor said, "You're not allowed to be reporting crimes. Don't turn the neighbors in. The neighbors are getting upset. They don't want to. They don't want to be turned in. Of course they don't. They're liable." And then they said, "Oh no, you're not stable, and so we're going to withdraw their housing. You don't have anywhere to go. The only choice you have is to go to a homeless shelter. You can go to a homeless shelter, or you can be re-traumatized. You can go into a boarding house or respite. Those are the only options. There are no options, but they give other options to other people. And why are they trying to withdraw when I should have more support because they've raised the rent 3 times and my mother has had to pay out of pocket several $100s when she is a retired single mother after years giving everything she can to her only child and my grandmother who's 100 years old? Do not ask this woman, my mother, who she has been through trauma and hell just being in the caretaker role. There was a time when I needed her to be my legal guardian. At this point, it's the problem. It has been. So they threatened to remove my support, the housing, and also delivery apartments. They were threatening, and quarters real estate. And I'm not trying to threaten. I'm just trying to make sure you understand the truth. May the truth set you free too. That they were threatening to put a deadline. Do you know how it feels to have that kind of deadline? Say, it was like 4 days. They said, that's a reasonable time frame. Oh, you were warned earlier. But why? They wanted to push me out October 31st. So that put a lot of pressure saying, you're going to be evicted November 1st. You can't get every single thing out of here, have a place to go, be moved in by then. I barely had the energy to, and nobody would go with me to look at prospective places. I was not able to look at one option, one real estate option, I was not given one option other than homeless shelter, because I said it would take time, 3 months or so to transition. Homeless shelter or a boarding house respite home. I've been pushed into a respite home after being hospitalized. I know what it's like to feel like you're in a dead end. That is re-traumatizing to threaten someone who's been homeless before, who knows what it's like to be in that kind of jeopardy. At the very bottom, being able to survive. So that was wrong too. And currently, as it stands, they're still trying to push me out. They think that November 31st, they think that's reasonable to be pushing me out by then, not having support with anyone to go, being up in jeopardy about all these other issues, having a court date on in December, early December, having to work with this, getting restoration of competency, being at the bottom, getting my bankruptcy for my business, my business T-lations, barely making it, being unemployed, and I'm doing this research study with Europeans, which has been a 5-week long study, and I won't be able to get compensated $200 for another several weeks till December 14th or so. But I have to go there every day to check in on these patches, and I can't go to the sauna or anything like that. So I have not had options. I have had my hands tied in ways, including with handcuffs, including with restraints, being in the hospital in a wheelchair, tied up, put in restraints, injected with things that I shouldn't be injected with, that I don't need, it's not medically necessary. In fact, it's doing a disservice to my endocrine system, and in terms of my fertility, that's had an effect too. And mental stability is being re-traumatized in a place where I felt like I was dying. How many times I've been forced to be treated with that. So I almost refused the medical consent in the prison. But they said, well, you have to, and you have to. I said, well, I do not force me. And they said, well, this is protocol. This is a law. It's legal and binding. But that's why the founding fathers, they wrote the Constitution and amendments and all these with the ability, with the crucial amendment to be able to adapt things as needed. If they are posing as an obstacle, as a threat to the human race, to the animal race, to the environment, if they are jeopardizing or somehow deterring from what life should be as being free, what people have fought for, then that's wrong. It should be overturned. That's where the policymakers, that's where the authority figures, they need to understand. Corporate, at that level where they are, need to understand the ethics, the terms of ethics, that the administrator is not always aware of, or is instituting things that are considered protocol, set in stone, which is a direct quote, and the things that are totally wrong, that need to be addressed and amended and adapted. I have been at the bottom of the barrel. I am not an authority figure. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a leader. I have been in poverty level, disability. I'm an ethnic minority. I'm a single woman, 40 years old. I have been victimized. I have been raped and sexually abused, persecuted, violated, verbally abused. I have been drugged. I have been stolen from, and I have been mentally enslaved. I've been physically enslaved. I've been forced to do things that are wrong, forced to do things that are not human. So, you're asking for support here. And I didn't want to cut my hair. It ended up being like this. At least I didn't cut myself, and I ended up so much that I haven't wanted, and things that I haven't been able to obtain, the dreams that people wanted to kill too, and people wanting to destroy us, destroy the real bonds, real relationships. My own mother, my own grandmother, the bonds that should be respected, unconditional love, pure love between animals and people, that should be healing and harmonious and therapeutic, and they have been. They have been for me, and I wanted to be able to share that with the community, the country, and the world, but we can only do so much. I'm trying to regain years of my life been taken away from me with my health. So we're trying to be able to do that. So we hope that you'll be able to understand that, understand the truth, see the light, be part of the solution. There's more than one. I would like to believe there's more than one, but you're part of the problem. If you are not able to defend what's right, to defend you, to be able to advocate, to be able to try to understand, to be able to try to help people who have been completely violated and abused to calm down, to try to understand where the anger comes from, and try to be part of the solution, to have mental health awareness, to foster a healthy respect. We may think differently, we could be completely. It's not just, politics aside. You may hate my hair, but to let that become hate and resentment, that can be the gray areas could be red flags. That can become a hate crime. So we have to go back to the source. Renew our minds. And if we're not able to communicate, we're not able to feel that there's a healthy, safe place in which we're able to find our voice. I've almost, believe it or not, 40 minutes in, 40 minutes in, I've almost lost my voice. And it wasn't just because physically I've been exhausted, but because I have been so numb, so violated, so abused. So you sometimes feel like you're caving in. And that's when you need an advocate. When you're stuck somewhere in a prison or a psych ward, which I've been in way too many times. We'll talk about that later. But involuntary versus voluntary commitment, that place can feel like more of a prison too. Just as much as a prison too. So, maybe be able to heal and recover from that. And not conceal things. Not feel the need to bottle them up. There's a sick silence. There's a healthy silence. And you know the difference. You can feel it. And you know how wrong it feels to be forced to do or think or feel anything. Because wars have been fought over dictatorships. And wars should not be fought because they destroy lives. Whatever soil, whatever territory. We're not more important than territory. Then we can get a reality check. In my humble opinion. I am trying so hard to be able to transcend from this and turn it back into the power of peace. The power of prayer to cultivate peace. The power of peace. Because, I understand where it's coming from. The military standpoint, the hippie standpoint. I'm remembering this decade of the 60s and how there's so much in the 50s that was not confronted, that was not talked about, that was considered taboo. And we in 2025 are not able to attempt to try to work things out, to try to be able to overcome any shame or blame or go these outside factors that are deterring from having real relationships, open communication, from everything has a ripple effect. Then we need to be able to try to do that. Or this community, country, and world is going to continue to be destroyed. I understand on a core level what it's like to struggle between good and evil. What the triggers are. So the more we can remember that there's so much goes on beyond the surface and stop judging and be able to care about the full person composition, that care about animals, care about the environment. Because that's how we want to feel, right? And how would we live without love? So don't lose sight of that feeling. Your heart, however many times been broken, you deserve. I deserve. We need to heal. And the more we can heal together, give ourselves permission to heal, find the inner healer within ourselves, and help animals heal. Help the environment heal. Do you know that's biblical? That He will heal our land? Because we won't think about it's my land or your land. The people get so territorial, right? To the point of killing people, to the point of stealing, vandalism. But if we think about it as the land that we share, how can we live in peace and harmony? How much better would we be? What has hate caused historically today and in the future? What has love? What has love grown? Do some reflecting. Regain your perspective. And don't lose sight of the feeling and the remembrance of true love. that will also never die goes on for those of them who aren't here. Also living on with the love we have for them, the love they'll always have for us if we see them again. Do not feel the need to take our lives away earlier or at any point. That is not your right.